Are you serious about your health and fitness, but overwhelmed by the conflicting information and BS all over social media? Welcome to Fit Facts. Brought to you by Brandon Pascual and Gabe Erno. With a combined 10 years of training experience, this physical therapist and personal trainer duo bring you the most up-to-date and applicable fitness and lifestyle tips based on the most cutting-edge research, bridged with field experience of what actually works and is sustainable for the long term. Enjoy. You have squeaky shoes, Brandon.
I do have squeaky shoes.
It's a little annoying.
It's like SpongeBob. SpongeBob.
No, but I just stomp. So my shoes, I don't know if they're squeaky or whatever, but I'm just a loud person. So when I walk, I'm always stomping. I'm not aware of it, but I'm just the type of person, say I wake up in the middle of the night, I have to go pee. I'm like tripping over myself, slamming the door, slamming down the toilet seat. When I go to the fridge, I slam it, and I don't realize I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm just a aggressive person.
Oh, sure. It's probably because you're in a rush all the time, maybe.
I don't know. I've always been like that, or I am kind of in a rush too. I'm always like dropping shit. So,
yeah.
You know, it's life out here. You know.
Oh shit. Well, because for me, when I walk in the gym, especially if I'm like in a rush, I will stomp. Like if I'm going from client to client.
Yeah.
But about
power walk.
Right. But about my squeaky shoes though, I'm glad that the gym's music is super loud. Because I remember when it was just a quiet workout. It was just a few trainers working out, and I was working out myself.
Yeah.
They had no music on because everyone had their headphones on.
It's kind of awkward.
It is awkward.
Just,
but
breathing and the shoes squeaky. It's like give some ambience.
I started walking. I was like, oh shit, my feet are really, or my shoes are really squeaky right now. Like I need to put on some background music. So I'll even put it on, even if no one's working out. I'll just put it on there.
Yeah. But I mean, we have a great episode today, Brandon, and it's not about squeaky shoes.
It isn't. Nope.
Do you know what it's about?
No. Why don't you enlighten us?
Let me tell you. So there was a new study that just came out. All right, and this study is all about how we, as the world, adhere to the exercise guidelines.
Okay.
So obviously, the government, they throw out exercise guidelines. Do this much exercise, cardio, aerobic exercise a week. Do this much resistance training.
Yeah.
And this study actually looked at 32 different countries. And how many people? 3.3 million participants, right? And it looked at how they actually adhered to this. So obviously, some countries were really high. I think it was, let's see what I wrote down. Iceland, 53.4% of these Nordic people are adhering. That's pretty good.
That's pretty. I was gonna say that is very good.
Take a guess. Where do you think the worst adherence was?
Well, I want to say America, but I feel like we're not that. We're not that bad.
We're not that bad.
Yeah, we're not that bad. No. It would probably have to be a place where they don't have access, probably, or they're not educated enough to know about being active.
That may be it. I don't know much about this place, but Romania was coming in poorly with 0.5%
0.5
adherence.
Not even 1%.
Not even 1%. Everyone's just smoking cigarettes and sitting there. I'm just kidding. I don't really know.
I don't know that much about Romania, so I'm like.
My buddy's Romanian. We should have had him on this podcast so he could break it down. But he's pretty fit. Yeah. So maybe he's one of the 0.5%.
Okay. I was gonna say probably people in. You said Iceland is the first one.
Yeah, Iceland was number one. 53.4% of people adhered to both the aerobic and the resistance training.
I'd probably think because it's super cold there, I believe, so it's all the way up north, so they gotta keep themselves warm.
Maybe. I've always felt like Norwegian, the people, all these people are very healthy people.
Yeah, they're pretty fit.
So, I don't know exactly, but those are the brief stats and some other really interesting things, and we'll get to how this actually applies to the audience in a moment, but BMI status was non-linearly related, so it really didn't matter, if what your BMI was in relation to if you were going to adhere to this at all.
So if your BMI was really high, you're saying that
there was no statistical significance as the BMI correlated to the exercise.
If they were pretty active. A person with a high BMI and a person with low BMI, it doesn't really matter. If they were adherents to the exercise.
It didn't show any relation on this study.
Okay.
What did show a positive association was actually education level, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
Maybe let's theorize why that might be.
Yeah, probably because they're not. I feel like it's what I said before. I would say they don't know that they should be how to take care of themselves. They don't know how to really exercise. They don't know the statistics of what would happen if you don't exercise.
I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously in school you definitely learn things like that. Mm-hmm. I think another point, maybe this is me kind of going a little far with it, but people with a higher education level probably are more likely to have good job security, higher income, maybe just have less stress in their life, more free time to be able to focus on things like exercise, where, potentially someone with a lower education level, more financial stress, maybe they're working 2 jobs, exercise and health kind of takes a back seat, and the day-to-day becomes more important, of like, just let it be, pay my bills.
That makes sense. It's like, what are you going to prioritize? Like, are you going to prioritize putting food on the table for your kids, or are you going to prioritize like your health? So I can see how that theory comes to play.
Totally, because definitely exercise is something everyone should do. Yeah. Exercise, I would say, is something everyone can do, but there's of course an element of privilege in it, where like, if somebody makes $500,000 a year and just, has a bunch of free time, they can afford a really good trainer. They can take time off work. If somebody's working a minimum wage job and just struggling to make ends meet, maybe they can still get some form of exercise in. But if they're not really educated in it, they're not going to be able to hire a professional to really help them. So we could kind of talk in this episode too of like,
and they won't even have like the resources also.
They don't have the resources. So obviously it's life is not fair, and these are unfortunate things that, probably, socially and through public health policy could be improved. But it is what it is. So in this episode, I think we should talk a little bit too of like, for people who don't have all these resources, what are ways that they could still, find some improvement. Like we should brainstorm throughout this episode.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we'll be throwing some of those things out there. But yeah, so this meta-analysis, pretty much, some other really brief things before we just jump into the more applicable stuff for your guys' lifestyle. 72% of the population in 2018 actually met the aerobic guidelines. So what are the aerobic guidelines, Brandon? Let me tell you, all right? So the CDC recommends 150 minutes every week of moderate intensity aerobic activity. So that means like power walking, something like that. 150 minutes every week. So, you can split that into like a 30-minute walk every day. If you're doing that, you're meeting the guideline. Now, there's another way they classify this. If you do vigorous activity instead of the moderate activity, so vigorous activity would be like jogging or running. At that point, to meet the activity guidelines, you just need 75 minutes a week. So that's, a lot less. And then obviously you can mix those together and get there somehow. But, really when you look at that 30-minute walk 5 days a week, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
It's for most people, I think that's doable. Obviously everyone has different circumstances. For most people, I think that's doable. Then when we look at the actual, muscle strengthening ones, 22.5% of people adhered to the muscle strengthening activities in a study. I think this was in 2018. And the muscle strengthening one, that's just on 2 or more days of the week, work all major muscle groups. So like a full body workout.
Full body 2 times.
2 times a week. And boom, you're hitting the guideline. And only 22.5% of people hit that. When we look at hitting both, only 17.3% hit that in this study, and I think this was 2020. And then 22.3% of people hit neither. So it's pretty interesting to look at, right? But when I say those guidelines to you, what's your first thought? Is that your first thought, like, that's pretty doable? Do you think that's tough? Like, obviously, we're already into fitness, so.
I would say probably if it was a newer client trying to get into activity, I would say it looks doable to them at first. And because you could tell them to break it up, because 150 minutes, you said 30 minutes for 5 days.
Yeah.
So I feel like that if you get them on a habit of doing some kind of like light activity for 30 minutes, that could get them started. I feel like it would be doable. But however, there can also be like another like disadvantage where someone's like, 150 minutes, that looks too little. So then they start going into like that vigorous stage where like, let me go more intensely.
Which is fine, too.
Which is fine, which is fine. But then
going over the top?
Yeah, going over the top. But my only concern is like they'll go way too over the top that they burn themselves out and then they just stop exercising.
Which is tons of people, right? Because I think one thing that in this CDC page I'm looking at, which is cool, they note, even just doing 5 minutes a day is going to give you benefits. So obviously these are, they set these guidelines for a reason. I don't know exactly why they set the guidelines this way, but not doing all of it and still doing something, you still get benefits from it.
It's all about like doing something than doing nothing at all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like, we've talked in the past about the all or nothing mentality not being very helpful. One thing that they note in here, which is really interesting, is that doing more will actually give you more benefits. But then the question is, like, how much? But anyway, let's really quickly jump to, should we do the benefits of meeting these guidelines, or should we do reasons people fail to meet these guidelines first?
Reasons people fail.
All right, so reasons people fail to meet these guidelines. In the study I was looking about, they summarized a couple really good reasons. Obviously, it's a multifactorial. There's not just one reason someone's going to fail to meet these guidelines. One big reason is time constraints. And that's just people with busy lives, right? Especially if this isn't a habit that you're used to making a priority for, it's going to be really tough at the end of a long workday to make time to exercise. So, that's something that we definitely see with our clients.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we've both had do a fairly good job at helping them build that habit. So why don't you talk about a couple ways you would do that?
Well, I was trying to get one of my clients to do the bike, like he's an online client. I said, hey, you got to do the bike. It's non-negotiable, at least 10 minutes a day.
Okay.
Just to like kind of show him like how serious are you, and like because I've been working in it for like a year and a half. So I'm like, yo, how serious are you into like really working on your health? He's like, oh, I'm serious. It was New Year, so we reassessed our goals. So I was like, all right, for 10 minutes a day, you got to go on the bike. So he did pretty well, but then he started slacking a little because he's not used to like exercising, or doing some kind of exercise every day. He'll only do it like 2 times a week. So what I told him, I said, hey, did you at least think about going on the bike? And I was like, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, that's a win. All right, so I was like, I called that a win.
It's on your mind,
right? Then the following week, he said, oh yeah, I've been thinking about going on the bike, so I guess it counts, right? I'm like, no. Now I want you to actually sit on the bike. Like, if you don't have that much time, because he's a busy man, he has like 2 jobs.
Wow.
So I'm like, if you don't have that much time, I want you to just sit on the bike then, all right? When you get home, I know you're super stressed out, you want to stress eat after a long day from being yelled at your boss or something, but I want you to just go sit on the bike, and if you just sit on the bike, you don't even have to pedal, we'll call that a win.
Cool, so you're progressively increasing the challenge.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've heard a couple psychologists talk about too, is even with people who maybe they're just at really low places in their life, and their life is a shambles. They're living in a room at like age 40 in their mom's house, their room's a mess, and they want to clean their room. Maybe that's too big of an obstacle because they've been doing nothing for so long.
Yeah.
Maybe the first thing they should do is simply get the vacuum and put it outside of their door. And then the second thing is, okay, now they'll plug the vacuum in.
Right, yeah, and exactly.
So like we're progressively adding, and I see the same thing with my clients. I just had a client, he came in, he told me, I'm 45 now, I'm getting older, I want to just live a healthy life, right?
Yeah.
I want to live a long time. And he told me he wants to start off working out 1 day a week. And I was straight up with him. I told him, that, working out 1 day a week compared to 0 days a week, you will get health benefits. But you're not going to see substantial physical changes to your body composition. But if that's all you're willing to do, I think it's great. That's something. And we can build from there over time. And now it's month 2, and he's about to go to 2 30-minute workouts a week.
There it is.
So over the next year, progressively, the goal is to get him to the 5 workouts a week. But if we went in with that mentality of, okay, specifically the guidelines are you must do 2 days of muscle strengthening activities a week. You must do 150 minutes of aerobic activity a week. I can't do that. I'm just not going to do anything at all. You're setting yourself up for failure, and you're not getting the benefits, which are great, and we'll talk about in a second. But so another reason someone's going to fail, in addition to time constraints, is going to be low self-efficacy, meaning just they're not confident in their ability to know what to do. Yeah. Why, like, should I run? Should I walk? Should I bench press? Should I squat? So obviously, as far as people with the financial means, I think getting a trainer is awesome. Yeah. Because we can teach you and empower you. This is why you do this exercise. Your body is going to mean you're going to have to use this type of technique. All these different things. But for people, let's just talk about people who can't afford it. What, in your opinion, are some ways that they can at least empower themselves? Like, obviously, the internet is around. Oh, yeah. There's so many great resources out there. Yeah. But there's also bad resources out there that spread misinformation. So what are some of your opinions on ways to...
Yeah, so with those bad, resources, I would say, they are doing it for marketing purposes, but I will say, sometimes every individual person, they have a different conditioning level. Yeah. So if it's someone who's super sedentary, has never worked out in the last few months, and they just start a workout that they find on YouTube, it's HIIT training, train like an athlete. then that's for sure going to injure them and probably impede on their goals.
It could be too much.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're aware of like your conditioning level is what I say, and then aware of like how active you are, because you don't want to jump into something that that isn't appropriate for you. So I say like look for beginner workouts on YouTube.
Kill your ego. Like just be, if you're unsure if you're a beginner or intermediate, just err on the side of being a beginner, because then you can slowly build up to that intermediate.
Yeah, you don't want to jump like to the part where like you're doing a bunch of like power training and out there sprinting in your like front yard.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Especially if you haven't worked out for so long. But I would say I tell my clients like usually go look for a YouTube workout if you really want to like look for something that's specific for you. If you can't like afford a trainer, you can't afford to work with me. So I would say that, or also even go if you have a friend who's super active, I would say kind of ask them their recommendation for you, and then you kind of have to know like when to scale or when to like.
But you might not know that, and in that case, that's where I was actually talking to this trainer yesterday, and I was talking to him about how I'd seen a couple trainers who I thought, quote unquote, maybe were bad trainers, and he was making the argument to me. He's like, maybe they aren't the best with technique, biomechanics, all these things. At the end of the day, is exercising better than not exercising?
Yeah.
Almost always, yes. So even if it's just getting on your floor and doing some push-ups, you realize you can't do push-ups, you do knee push-ups, or you do a couple crunches, you do some planks. Literally anything is better. Almost anything is better than nothing. And, you can always scale up and learn from there. But I would just say start really simple if you feel overwhelmed. Like really simple. I'm talking, I do a plank for a minute every day, and I tried a set of push-ups. Yeah. And that's my resistance training. And I, now I'll do that 2 times a week. Now I'll try to add in a third exercise. Yeah. It can be very simple, but as long as there's something you can build on, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, exactly. And then now it's like pretty convenient to like buy like resistance bands off Amazon.
Yeah.
And you can now like search stuff up on how to use those resistance bands on YouTube. Yep.
So I mean, there's so many ways. I would just say, just don't overwhelm yourself with perfection. Just jump into it, do something. Because we can all do something.
Yeah.
Next, another reason people fail in the media is going to be lack of access to safe locations. This is something Brandon and I were talking about a little bit, which is really interesting. You think of, maybe I live in a very beautiful part of San Diego. I love going on walks. It's peaceful. It's calm. But maybe you think of somebody who's in a more dangerous area. And maybe they don't feel safe. They get off their job. It's dark outside now. They don't feel safe walking around in their neighborhood. That's a valid worry. That's a valid concern. But, there's definitely going to be that aspect where not everyone can comfortably just stroll around their neighborhood. But again, just going back to what we said, you can still do something. Can you pace around in your apartment?
Yeah.
Can you crank out some push-ups, some sit-ups? So that is another thing of just not being overwhelmed by perfection. And eventually, as it becomes more of a habit and more of a priority, your brain is going to shift into not, why can't I do this, but how can I do this? And you'll be able to overcome some of those to the best of your ability.
That's true. So it said unsafe neighborhoods, or is it like...
Well, this specifically in the article just said lack of access to safe locations.
Oh, okay.
The thing that popped into my mind is like maybe you think of somebody who lives in like quote unquote the hood.
Yeah.
And there's maybe a lot of shootings that go, and do you expect like a 30-year-old single woman to feel comfortable strolling around the neighborhood late at night? Like probably not. So again, there is inequality in this. It's true, but I think that everybody can have positive, like achieve some level of these positive habits.
Just like working out like inside, like when I would tell one of my online clients, same guy, he actually lives in Jersey, so during the wintertime, he really can't go on a walk because, well, first of all, that neighborhood isn't that great, and also it snows hard out there. So he what he does is he goes up and down the stairs, like 4 flights of stairs.
That's awesome.
10 times, So that's another way to do it if you have access to that in your apartment or even in your home, like what Gabe said. Doing a lot of body weight exercises will help.
Yeah, put a little platform and just do step-ups.
Step-ups, yeah, exactly.
Like, boom, your heart rate will get jacked up, and that's your moderate intensity aerobic activity there.
Yeah.
And then the last reason, they say lack of desire. Now, lack of desire, obviously, a lot of people just don't see exercise as much of a priority, whether it's they just haven't been educated on the benefits, whether they know about the benefits, but they're just in a place on their life where they just don't care.
Yeah.
That's something we can't force. I've had clients who I've really given them everything I could. I've programmed for them the best way I could. I've came into the sessions with passion and tried to transfer that passion to them. And at the end of the day, they just don't do what I say they should do. And that's where, it comes down to the individual at that point. Mm-hmm. Is it important for you? If it's not important for you, there's nothing really anyone else can do. And my only advice is that, I don't really have advice there. Like, I think with changing priorities, that's something that it takes a long time to shift. Yeah. And oftentimes it won't shift until there's a pain point in someone's life. So, usually in my opinion, what creates change is either someone's going towards pleasure or away from pain. Somebody now has a chronic illness and, they have high blood pressure. They're at risk for a heart attack. Okay, maybe that's the pain they need to start making that habit a reality. Mm-hmm. Or maybe somebody, wants to just broke up with their girlfriend. They want to get in the best shape they can to attract some women, whatever. That's the pleasure point that they're going towards. So for some people, in the moment, there's really nothing we can say to make you exercise. It's just going to be, there will be a moment in your life, hopefully, that will be compelling enough for you. Yeah, or also, to prioritize it.
You would even say, like, it's like a limiting belief, because I'm pretty sure you've heard people say, like, oh, when I'm 27, that's when my testosterone goes down. Yes. Or, like, people will refer, like, we're in our late 20s, but people refer, like, oh, my early 20s, that was our prime, right? Yeah. Yeah, people would say stuff like that, and then they think that their physique and their health just goes down naturally because of age and just because I'm getting older, this is why it's happening to me. So I feel like a lot of people still have that limiting belief where they think that it's just normal to, I guess for rehab, it's like be hurt and then be inactive, or to not make time for exercise because, we have kids, we got mortgages to pay, I got all these events in my life.
Yeah, there's less stigma around it. It's like, oh, you don't exercise, but you're overwhelmed with your kids. It's easier to give yourself an out.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you kind of want to prioritize health by thinking of it as not like an obstacle or like something that's taking time away from your kids, but it'll help like supplement and improve the quality of time you have with your kids, or improve the quality of time you have with your friends, or when you work as well.
Totally. So we've been talking about what these guidelines are. We've been encouraging all of you guys to start adhering to these guidelines, or at least improving your adherence if you're not at all right now. But why? Why should they do this? Well, guys, there are benefits to this. We have this list right now. We're just going to read off a list of benefits. Lower risk of all-cause mortality. What does that mean? Lower risk of dying from literally anything. That's awesome. And I actually specifically looked up, I was curious how much exercise plays a role in that. Yeah. I saw a couple different stats, but it ranged from anywhere from 18 to 27% of a reduction in all-cause mortality from exercise. That's huge.
Yeah. And then we also have the lower risk of cardiovascular disease mortality. Yeah.
Yep. So less of a risk from dying of like a heart attack, anything like that, heart disease or stroke. Yep. Lower risk of hypertension, meaning lower risk of high blood pressure.
Then we have the diabetes.
Lower risk of that. Lower risk of adverse blood lipid profile. Lower risk of cancers of the bladder, the breast, the colon, endometrium, like all cancers.
Improved cognition. Oh, I see that for sure.
I definitely feel that myself. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like when I have my clients in the evening and then they see me back to back, sometimes they're a little more sharper on the second day because they worked out the day before me.
Totally. Acutely, I definitely notice the improved cognition. But even as you age, obviously when people get older, they can sometimes be at a risk of dementia or things like this. Yeah. And, exercise actually has been shown to reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease as well.
Oh, yeah. I used to see that a lot when I would work with, like, a little more older population, like people in their 80s, 90s. So I would give them actually, when they would work with me, I give them, like, ladder drills.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they're doing, like, footwork because it still gets their heart going, and also it forces them to use other parts of their brain.
It's a lot of coordination involved.
So that means they got to, like, turn on stuff in their brain that's, like, trying to deteriorate because of the Alzheimer's, because of dementia, stuff like that.
Improve quality of life. I mean, this is obvious for anyone who exercises. You just feel better. You feel more confident. There's these just things that you'll notice immediately. And also in the long term, part of the reason you feel better is because of chemically what's happening in your body. Part of the reason you feel better is because you're disciplining yourself and you're consistently doing something and you're seeing results from that and you get that satisfaction. It's many reasons why you feel better, but you definitely feel a lot better.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Then you have the reduced anxiety. I mean, same as what you said. Yeah. You just feel less anxious because you feel more confident in being able to do stuff because you're able to, like, take take I guess be more empowered in your health and your body.
It's from that habit standpoint, and then also, chemically it helps with anxiety. I noticed for me, for whatever reason, I've noticed aerobic exercise, like running or things that get my heart rate jacked up, that actually helps with reducing my anxiety and stress more than lifting does.
Yeah.
They're both great. I think I love lifting a little more, but I've just anecdotally noticed that if I'm feeling really stressed, like a good run or something is going to reduce that more than a lift.
No, I feel that because you see me, I've been doing more performance training.
Yeah.
And I feel more like energetic after the performance training versus me like doing like a 5x5 on deadlifts.
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that.
totally.
So I feel that. And it says reduced risk of depression. That goes back to that last reason.
I will say for sure that if somebody is telling me they're feeling depressed, and then, there's definitely some people have major depressive disorder, which is it's a chemical imbalance. There's not a lot you can do. But for people with just, low to moderate depression, if you look at your lifestyle and you're not exercising, you're staying up really late, all your lifestyle factors are not in order, improving those basic tenets of like sleep better, eat better, exercise can literally change your whole life. And I've been there. I've been in a point where I've been really depressed, not really exercising, started exercising, and you just, your whole life changes.
Yeah, it just gives you like a sense of purpose, honestly. Yeah. And you also see the improved sleep as well.
Improved sleep, slowed or reduced weight gain.
Yep, that's coming in. So weight loss, we already know that. And then prevention of weight regain following initial weight loss. So that's more of like sustaining the changes that you made.
Something that obviously comes from the aerobics part of it, but also is really big from resistance training, is improved bone health. As people age, their bones typically get a little more porous. The risk of osteoporosis is huge for a lot of women. And people who exercise are going to have strong bones, less likely to, break your hip when you're elderly, things like that.
Yeah, the only way the bones like kind of get that nutrition is by load. So that's resistance training. Then we have the improved physical function. We know that. We're able to move a little better. Low risk of falls for the older adults. When I used to work with a lot of older adults, I saw a lot who, after they fall, there's actually a crazy statistic where it's like, if an adult falls twice and they get a fracture, I think there are chances of, I hate to say it, dying. It goes up by 70%.
It's crazy.
70%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And there was another interesting thing I saw, actually, that it had a correlation of your gait, like the speed of your gait, how fast you walked, to your mortality risk. So, like older adults who walked fairly briskly were much less likely to die as early as adults who, were maybe walking really slow. And so even that, and there's obviously, I don't know the details on that, but part of me feels like it's just it's like life force in a way, where your life force is kind of, you have good life force, you want to keep living,
Yeah, I feel like because adults walk slow, I feel like because just think about like when you're like in your 80s and
you hurt and everything
and you hear like all your friends like in your 80s like dying from like a fall.
Yeah.
So you become so paranoid and cautious, like, oh shit, I'm just gonna start walking slowly now. I'm gonna start using a walker, a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just like underload your body in a sense, and you become less confident in walking. So that might be one of the reasons.
Totally. But obviously this is a lot. These are not all the reasons.
Yeah.
There's plenty more reasons why exercise is super positive. But I just don't want anyone to hear these and be like, yeah. Like, these are very, very significant. These are powerful. If you don't exercise and you begin consistently exercising, your life will change. I've had so many clients saying other things like, Gabe, I'm just happier, I'm more energetic, my sex drive is higher. Just so many positive things that you hear, and it's just really it's really an awesome thing. So if you're not exercising, feel free to reach out to one of us. We'd love to help you with that. If you don't have the means for a trainer, just do what we said. Make a very small habit. Start with a couple push-ups. Try 20 push-ups a day. If that's easy, bump it up to 40 push-ups. If that's easy, add some crunches in. Start slow and build on that. Yeah,
don't go buy a whole squat rack and gym equipment like right now if you haven't been exercising, because it's just gonna dust up in a few months, honestly.
Yeah.
You want to start small.
But everyone, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a new study that came out, and I think the study really applies to all of our lives. So I hope you all got value from that. If you like the podcast and you're listening on Spotify, please rate us 5 stars. We're trying to up our ranking in the store or in the Spotify community, whatever. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Brandon, anything else we should say?
I would say probably comment and let us know what restrictions you have, or maybe how did this study resonate with you? Do you live in an unsafe neighborhood? Do you have a lot of time constraints? What are your challenges of getting a good workout in?
And how can we overcome those challenges?
Yep.
So everyone, we'll see you in the next episode. I'm Gabe.
I'm Brandon.
Peace.